She had set my suitcase in the garage before I arrived. She had stacked it next to the rake. She had thought I wouldn't notice. By 8 the next morning, the locks on my own front door had been changed, and the daughter-in-law who had moved my suitcase was finding out, on the porch of a house she'd been calling hers for 4 years, that she did not, in fact, have a key. Here is what actually happened. My name is Eleanor. I am 74 years old. My husband Frank died in 2019. We had been married for 48 years. He left me a 4-bedroom Cape Cod on a quiet street in a small Connecticut town where the maples turn copper in October and the snow comes early in December. The house had been ours since 1976. Frank had built the back deck himself in 1983. The wreath on the front door, the same balsam wreath I had hung every December for 38 Christmases, had been the first thing Frank had bought me on our first Christmas in the first fact. House. I had been hanging the wreath for 38 years. This year, I had not yet hung it. This year, I had been flying back from Phoenix. In November of 2024, I had flown to Phoenix to spend 2 weeks with my sister Patricia, who had been recovering from hip surgery. I had not been home for Thanksgiving. I had spent Thanksgiving at Patricia's small ranch house, eating turkey on TV trays, while she rested her leg on a pillow, and the football game played quietly in the background. I had not minded. Patricia was my only sister. She was 3 years older than me. She had needed me. I had flown home on the afternoon of December 23rd. My son Michael was supposed to pick me up from the airport. He had not. He had called me at the gate at 1:15 p.m., 20 minutes before my flight, boarded for the connection, and told me that something had come up at work, that he was so sorry, that he had arranged for an Uber to pick me up at Bradley International at 6:40 p.m. I had said, "Of course, sweetheart, don't worry, I'll see you when I get home." I had thought, at the time, that the change was inconvenient, but understandable. Michael worked as a regional sales director for a medical device company. December was his quarterly close. He had been busy. I had not yet understood what the Uber meant. I would understand within 90 minutes of getting home. My son Michael is 46. He is married to a woman named Jennifer. They have 2 children, my granddaughter Amber, 16, and my grandson Caleb, 12. They live, in theory, in a town 2 hours away. In practice, they had been living at my house for 4 years. The arrangement had begun in February of 2021. Michael had called me. This had become a pattern of his. The Tuesday afternoon call, with the careful voice, and explained that they were between houses and would need somewhere to land for a few weeks while they finalized the purchase of a new place. The previous house had sold faster than they expected. The new house was not yet ready. "Just a few weeks, Mum. Really? We'll be out before April." I had said yes. That had been 3 years and 10 months ago. In those 3 years and 10 months, the new house had been mentioned 4 times, twice in 2021, once in 2022, never since. The 4 of them had occupied the upstairs of my house. Jennifer had taken over the kitchen the way some women take over a husband. Michael had moved his home office into Frank's old study and had moved Frank's roll-top desk into the garage to keep it safe while I'm using the space. Amber had taken what used to be the guest bedroom. Caleb had taken the small sewing room that had been mine for 30 years. I had moved, temporarily, into the smallest bedroom on the first floor, the one that had been Frank's recovery room during his final illness, and, which still had a faint hospital bed quality, I had been telling myself I would redecorate one day. I had not redecorated it. I had been living in it for 3 years and 10 months. That, however, was not the worst of it. The worst of it was that the small, soft phrases had been arriving for nearly 2 years. Jennifer, in particular, had developed a vocabulary about the house that I had been pretending not to hear. The kitchen had become our kitchen. The dining room had become where we host. The back deck, the one Frank had built, had become the entertainment space. The basement had become Mike's gym. Amber's room had become Amber's room. The only room that had not been renamed was the small first-floor bedroom I was living in. That room remained Mom's room. I had laughed at the small phrases. I had laughed because the alternative naming what was happening felt larger than I was yet willing to name. The laughing had gotten harder in the autumn of 2024. In October, Jennifer had hung a stocking with my name on it on the fireplace mantel. The stocking had been red and white. The name had been embroidered in green. Mom. The stocking had been the same size as the other 4 stockings, but it had been hung at the very end of the mantel, slightly lower than the others. The way a guest's stocking might be hung at a family that had once forgotten she was coming. I had stared at the stocking for a long time. On the afternoon, Jennifer hung it. I had not said anything. The stocking had been the last small phrase before the Phoenix trip. I had flown to Patricia's the next week. I had been gone 2 weeks. I had come home, on December 23rd, to find the wreath I had been hanging for 38 years, still in its storage box in the basement. Jennifer had not hung it. Nobody had. The front door of my own house on the night I flew in for Christmas was bare. The Uber dropped me off at 6:48 p.m. The driveway had 2 cars in it, Michael's and Jennifer's. The house was warmly lit. I could see, through the front window, the glow of a Christmas tree in the living room and the silhouette of someone moving in the kitchen. I paid the driver. I thanked him. I lifted my suitcase out of the trunk. I walked up the driveway. I noticed, at the bottom of the front porch, that one of my own ceramic flower pots had been moved. It had been moved to a spot beside the driveway where it could not have been intentionally placed by anyone who knew the property. It had been pushed aside, the way you push something out of the way when you're carrying something heavy and need a clear path. I noticed it. I did not yet know what it meant. I climbed the porch steps. I rang the bell. Jennifer opened the door. She was wearing a soft cream cashmere sweater and tailored black slacks, and the small bright smile she uses when she is performing hospitality. She said, "Eleanor, you're back. Come in the cold." I stepped inside. The house smelled like cinnamon and pine. There was Christmas music playing from a speaker in the kitchen. The fireplace had a low fire in it. The Christmas tree in the living room was a fresh-cut Douglas fir, taller than the ones I had ever bought myself. It had been decorated with new ornaments. Most of them were silver and white. None of them were the ornaments I had collected over 48 years of marriage to Frank. None of the small handmade ones the children had made in elementary school. None of the brass bell from our wedding. None of the small wooden angel that had belonged to my mother. The tree was beautiful. It was not, in any meaningful sense, my tree. I looked at the mantel. There were now 5 stockings. The 5th, the one with Mom embroidered on it, had been moved. It had been moved from the mantel to a small side table by the entryway. The table was a small table I used for keys and incoming mail. The stocking lay on the table, folded in half, the way a coat is folded when there is no closet hook to hang it on. I looked at the mantel again. The 4 remaining stockings, Michael's, Jennifer's, Amber's, Caleb's, were hung in a careful, evenly spaced row across the front of the fireplace. The mantel was now a family mantel. The folded stocking on the side table was, by clear implication, the visiting one. I did not, in that moment, say anything about the stocking. I noticed it. I let it sit in my chest. I followed Jennifer into the kitchen. Michael was at the kitchen island, opening a bottle of red wine. He looked up. He said, "Mom, you're home. How was Phoenix? How's Aunt Pat?" I said, "Phoenix was good. Pat is doing well. The hip is healing." Amber came in from the den and hugged me. She was 16. She had grown 2 inches since I had seen her in October. She smelled like the perfume she had been wearing since she was 14. Something soft and floral that she had received for her birthday from her best friend. Caleb did not come in. He was upstairs, Jennifer explained, on a video call with his friend Tyler. I asked Jennifer if she had had a chance to bring my suitcase in from the porch. She said, "Oh, Eleanor, about your suitcase. Mike and I, we figured you'd want to put your things in the garage for now. We've sort of been using your room for guests, Mike's parents. Sorry, Mike's." She caught herself. She said, Mike's brother Greg is here. He and Brittany flew in this morning. Their flight back is the 26th. We thought they're only here for 3 days. We thought it would be easier if they had the downstairs bedroom, so we moved some of your things into the garage. Just temporarily. There's an air mattress set up for you in the basement craft room. It's actually really nice down there. I put new sheets on. It's just for 3 days. She smiled. The smile was bright and steady. I noticed that her hands, at her sides, were not quite steady. I noticed that the suitcase, my suitcase, with my clothes and my Christmas presents for Amber and Caleb, and my husband's old leather dop kit, had not, in fact, been brought in for me before I arrived. It had been left in the garage, with the rake, where she had put it earlier in the day, while she was preparing the downstairs guest room for her brother-in-law and his wife. I noticed that the air mattress in the basement was the response. I noticed that the entire arrangement, Mike's brother is here, the downstairs is taken, the basement is ready, was a series of small, soft phrases that had been prearranged before I even landed. I noticed something else. I noticed that Michael was looking at the kitchen island instead of looking at me. I had been a mother for 46 years. I knew, without needing to be told, that my son had agreed to this in advance, that he had agreed to it, knowing I would arrive jet-lagged and disoriented and unwilling to make a scene on Christmas Eve, and that he had agreed to it because the alternative, telling his wife no, was harder for him than the alternative of letting his mother sleep on an air mattress in her own basement. I said, very calmly, "Of course, sweetheart. 3 days. I understand. Let me bring my things in from the garage." Jennifer brightened. She said, "I can help." I said, "I have it, sweetheart. Thank you." I walked out the back door, into the cold, around the side of the house, to the garage. My suitcase was where she had said, next to the rake. The rake was actually leaning on it. I picked up the suitcase. The handle was wet from where it had been touching the concrete. I carried it back into the house. I carried it down the basement stairs. I set it on the floor of the small craft room beside the air mattress. I sat on the edge of the air mattress. I did not cry. I sat on the air mattress for 41 minutes. I want to pause here and ask you something honestly. If you had flown home for Christmas to the house you had owned for 48 years, decorated for 38 Christmases, hung a wreath on for nearly 4 decades, and arrived to find your suitcase placed beside a rake in the garage, your stocking folded on a side table, an air mattress set up in a craft room, and your bedroom given away to a man you had met 3 times, what would you have done in the next 10 minutes? I think a lot of women would have walked back upstairs and demanded an explanation. I think some would have called a hotel and left that night. I think a brave handful would have stood in the kitchen and asked, in a voice that did not shake, whose house this was. I did none of those 3 things. I want to tell you why. I had been a mother for 46 years. I had been a wife to Frank for 48. I had been a widow for 5.5. I had been laughing through the small, soft phrases for 2 years. And the laughing I had learned on the air mattress in the basement was the thing that had brought me to the rake in the garage. If I confronted Jennifer that night, she would say what she always said. "Eleanor, you misunderstood. The basement was just temporary. We didn't mean it that way. Greg and Brittany are family. We thought you'd understand." She would deploy the soft voice. She would deploy the, "I'm so sorry if you took it that way" construction. She would make sure that by morning the conversation had been converted. In everyone's memory, from the suitcase in the garage to Eleanor's misunderstanding about the basement. I would lose. I had been losing this argument in small, soft increments for 2 years. I was not going to lose it tonight. I was going to do something else. I waited until 8:30 p.m. Jennifer, Michael, Greg, and Brittany were sitting in the living room with glasses of red wine. Amber was in her room. Caleb was on his video call. The fire was crackling. The Christmas music was playing. I came up from the basement. I told them I was tired from the flight. I told them I was going to turn in early. I kissed Amber goodnight at her bedroom door upstairs. I went back down to the basement. I closed the basement door behind me. I sat on the edge of the air mattress. I picked up my phone. I called my lawyer. Her name was Helen Walsh. She had drafted my will after Frank died. She had also, the year before Frank got sick, drafted something else, something Frank had asked her to prepare, which I had never seen, and which Helen had been holding in her office safe for 5 years and 10 months on the night. I sat on the air mattress and called her. I did not yet know about the second document. I only knew about the will. It was 8:47 p.m. on December 23rd. Helen, I was certain, would be at home. I was about to call her on the evening before Christmas Eve. I almost did not call. I called. She picked up on the third ring. Eleanor. Helen, I am sorry to call on December 23rd in the evening. Eleanor, I am at home with a glass of red wine and a very dull television show. You are improving my evening. Tell me what is happening. I told her. The Uber, the suitcase, the rake, the folded stocking on the side table, the new Christmas tree, the downstairs bedroom given to Greg and Brittany, the air mattress in the basement, the 2 years of small, soft phrases, Jennifer's bright voice, Michael not looking at me at the kitchen island. When I had finished, Helen was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, very quietly, Eleanor, tell me about the deed. The deed is in my name alone, has been since Frank died. Has Michael ever in writing been added? No. Has Jennifer ever in writing been added? No. Has there ever been a lease, a contribution agreement, a tenancy document, or any written arrangement giving them a legal claim to the property? No. Eleanor, may I ask you a question? Yes. Are you calling me tonight because you want to know what your options are? Or are you calling me tonight because you have already decided what you are going to do, and you want me to make sure it can be done cleanly? I sat with the question. Then I said, Helen, I have decided. I would like Michael and Jennifer and the children to find that the locks have been changed when they come downstairs tomorrow morning. I would like a 30-day notice to vacate to be served by certified mail tomorrow at noon. I would like the house transferred into a trust that Michael and Jennifer cannot reach. I would like the trust beneficiaries to be Amber and Caleb. I do not want my grandchildren to suffer. I want them protected. I want the trust to be irrevocable. I want this to begin tonight. A long silence. Then Helen said, Eleanor, Frank wrote you a letter in February of 2019. I have been holding it in my office safe for 5 years and 10 months. I will bring it to your house tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. with the locksmith. We will read it together before he begins. He wrote me a letter. He did, Eleanor. He came to my office on a Tuesday afternoon in February of 2019, 6 weeks before he was diagnosed. He spent 3 hours in my conference room. He drafted, with my help, a small set of instructions for what to do on the day. His wife realized she could no longer continue laughing through what was happening in her own house. He said the day would come. He did not know when. He said when it came, his wife would call me, and that I should not contact her in the meantime. He paid for the trust, drafting in advance. He paid the locksmith's deposit in advance. He told me, and I am quoting Helen, my wife is going to need permission, on the day it happens, to do something she does not think she is the kind of woman who does. Your job is to make sure the permission is waiting for her. I sat with that on the air mattress, in the basement of my own house. I said, Helen, yes. Frank thought of the locksmith. He thought of the locksmith, Eleanor. He thought of all of it. We hung up. I sat on the air mattress for a long time. Then I got up. I unpacked my suitcase, slowly, item by item. I hung my Christmas dress on the small portable garment rack in the craft room. I set my husband's dop kit, the leather one he had given me to carry for him on a trip to Boston in 1993, and which I had been carrying ever since on top of the small wooden craft table. I laid my nightgown on the air mattress. I put on my nightgown. I went to sleep at 11 p.m. I slept the way a woman sleeps when she has, for the first time in 2 years, decided what is going to happen next. Helen arrived at my house at 6:55 a.m. on December 24th. She brought a leather portfolio. She brought a notary in a separate car. She brought a locksmith in a third car, a small white panel van, with the name Walsh and Associates Property Services on the side. I had not asked her how the locksmith was already affiliated with her firm. I learned, later, that Frank had set this up in 2019, a small standing arrangement, paid in advance, between Helen's firm and a locksmith service in town, with my house on file as a property to be serviced, at the immediate request of Helen Walsh, on any morning, of any day, of any year, with no advance notice required. Frank had thought of the locksmith. I had not yet, at 6:55 a.m., fully absorbed what that meant. The four of them, Helen, the notary, the locksmith, and me, gathered in my kitchen at 7 a.m. precisely. The household upstairs was still asleep. Helen handed me a sealed envelope. The envelope was cream-coloured. Frank's handwriting on the front. Eleanor, for the morning you need it. I broke the seal. I read, Eleanor, if you are reading this, something has happened in our house that you cannot continue to laugh through. I am sorry I am not there. I am writing this in February of 2019, 6 weeks before I will find out I am sick. I do not yet know I am sick. I am writing this because for 2 years now, I have been watching Jennifer slowly recategorize you in your own family, and I have not known how to stop it without becoming the kind of father who calls his daughter-in-law a name to his son, and I have not wanted to be that father. I have decided instead to leave you a tool. Eleanor, whatever has happened, the answer is no. The answer is no to whatever they have done. The answer is no to whatever they will say, to defend it. The answer is no to whatever they will ask you to forgive in exchange for one more chance. You have given them 3 years already, and I have watched you laugh through every soft sentence, and I have loved you for the laughing. And I am leaving you a tool because I do not want you to laugh anymore. The tool is this. Helen has the deed restructured. The trust is ready. The locksmith is on retainer. The 30-day notice is pre-drafted. The grandchildren are the beneficiaries, yes, the grandchildren themselves, not their parents. The trust skips Michael. It skips Jennifer. It goes to Amber and Caleb at age 25, in equal shares, untouchable until then. Eleanor, about the wreath. I want to mention the wreath specifically. I do not know what will have triggered the call to Helen. It may be something large. It may be something small. If it is small, please do not doubt that small things are sometimes the loudest. The wreath I bought you in 1979 was the cheapest thing I had ever bought, and the most expensive thing I had ever meant. If something has happened to the wreath, if it has not been hung this year, if it has been replaced, if it has been moved to a closet, please know that the wreath has always meant more than the wreath. Hang it tomorrow. Hang it on the front door of the house you are about to take back. Hang it before Michael and Jennifer wake up. Let it be the first thing they see when they come downstairs. I love you. I am sorry I am not there. Take the house back. Hang the wreath. Sit in your own kitchen. Cook Christmas dinner the way your mother taught you. The grandchildren are welcome. Their parents are not, for now. Helen will manage the rest. Frank. I read the letter twice. I did not cry. I set it down on the kitchen table. I looked at Helen. I said, Helen. Frank thought of the wreath. He thought of the wreath, Eleanor. He told me in 2019 that the wreath would matter on the morning you called me. He said his wife had been hanging the wreath every year for 33 years at that point, and that, if his wife had not hung the wreath this year, it would mean the house had been taken without anyone needing to take the deed. Helen, let us begin. We worked at my kitchen table for 2.5 hours. I signed the deed transfer. I signed the trust documents. I signed the irrevocable assignment of the house to the Frank Whitmore Family Trust. I signed the activation paperwork for Amber's and Caleb's sub-beneficiary structures. I signed the certified mail notice to vacate, addressed to Michael and Jennifer Whitmore, with a 30-day timeline beginning at noon that day. The notary stamped each document. The deed transfer was filed electronically with the town clerk's office at 9:18 am, the office having opened at 9 on Christmas Eve as a short-staffed holiday morning shift and was registered by 9:41. The certified mail was prepared and would be released to the postal service at noon for next-day delivery on December 26th. While we worked, the locksmith, a quiet man in his 60s named Daniel, worked on the front door, the back door, the side door, the garage door, and the basement door. He worked silently. He changed the cylinders. He cut new keys. By 10 May, he had finished. He handed me 3 keys, all on a small red carabiner. He paused at the kitchen door before he left. He said, "Mrs. Whitmore, your husband paid the retainer on this work in February of 2019. He came by the shop on a Saturday afternoon and asked me to set this up." He said, "Daniel, on the morning my wife asks Helen Walsh to call you, I want you to do this work without asking why. I want you to be quiet and quick. I want my wife to be holding the new keys before her son comes downstairs. I have been holding the file for 5 years and 10 months. I am glad we did the work today." I thanked him. He left. I held the 3 keys in my hand. The household upstairs was still asleep. I went to the basement. I retrieved the wreath from its storage box. I carried it upstairs. I hung it on the front door of my house at 10:17 A and December 24th. It was the 38th year I had hung that wreath. The balsam smelled in the cold morning air, exactly the way it had smelled in 1986 and 1991 and 2004 and 2019 and every other year. I stood on the porch for a moment after I hung it. I looked at the wreath. Then I went back inside. I put a kettle on. I made myself a cup of tea. I sat at my own kitchen table alone, in my own house, on Christmas Eve morning, with the deed in a trust, and the locksmith gone, and the certified mail prepared, and the wreath on the door, and I waited. Michael came downstairs at 10:48 am. He was in pajamas and a robe. He had not yet showered. He came into the kitchen for coffee. He saw me at the table. He saw the cup of tea. He saw, on the kitchen counter beside me, 3 documents fanned out: the deed transfer, the trust, the 30-day notice. He stopped in the doorway. He said, "Mom, what?" I said, "Sweetheart, sit down. We are going to talk." He sat. I told him. I told him calmly. I told him in the order things had happened: the Uber, the garage, the rake, the folded stocking, the air mattress, the phone call to Helen, Frank's letter, the deed transfer, the trust, the locksmith, the keys. I told him about the 30-day notice that would be released to the postal service at noon today on Christmas Eve. I told him about the grandchildren being the beneficiaries. I told him about the wreath. When I had finished, Michael's face was the color of wet paper. He said, Mom, please." I said, "Sweetheart, I'm going to tell you the same thing I told the air mattress in the basement at 11 o'clock last night. I have been laughing through the small, soft phrases for 2 years. I have been losing this argument for 2 years, in small, soft increments, that I did not have the courage to name at the time. Last night I sat on the air mattress and decided that the next time I lost ground in this argument, it would not be small, it would not be soft, it would be loud and clear and on paper and signed by a notary and irrevocable. The notice is at the post office. The deed is in trust. The locks are changed. None of this can be undone." He was crying. "Mom, the children." I said, "Sweetheart, the children are the beneficiaries. They will inherit the house in trust on my death. They will be old enough, by the time they inherit, to understand what they have been given and why. Until then, they are welcome here every other Saturday. I will drive to pick them up wherever you and Jennifer are living. I will return them. The arrangement is between the children and me." He said, "Mom, Jennifer, what am I going to tell Jennifer?" I said, "Sweetheart, you are going to tell Jennifer what happened. You are going to tell her what your father wrote in 2019. You are going to tell her that the locks have been changed. You are going to tell her that the 30-day notice is at the post office. You are going to ask her whether she would like to begin packing today or tomorrow. The choice of when is hers. The choice of whether is not. The 30 days begin at noon today. Jennifer came downstairs at 11:04. She was in a robe. She walked into the kitchen. She saw the documents on the counter. She saw Michael at the table. She saw me at the table. She said, What is going on?" I let Michael tell her. He did not do it well. He stuttered. He apologized at the wrong moments. He used the phrase, "Mom is having a moment," twice, before Jennifer interrupted him. Jennifer turned to me. She said, "Eleanor, please, can we just talk?" I said, "Jennifer, I have nothing to discuss with you that has not already been put on paper. The deed is in trust. The locks are changed. The notice to vacate goes to the post office at noon. You have 30 days to leave the house, beginning at noon today, which is—" I looked at the clock above the stove in 49 minutes. She said, "Eleanor, please, it was the suitcase, wasn't it? The suitcase. I am so sorry about the suitcase. I should not have put it in the garage. I was in a rush. Greg and Brittany were arriving. I was overwhelmed. I am so sorry. We can move Greg and Brittany to a hotel today. We can give you your room back. Tonight, we can." I said, "Jennifer." Yes. The suitcase was not the cause. The suitcase was the evidence. There is a difference. She did not answer. She started to cry. I noticed, distantly, that her crying was different from Michael's. His was the crying of a son who has, for the first time in his adult life, understood that he has been hiding behind his wife. Hers was the crying of a wife who has understood that she has been seen, finally, by a woman she had assumed could no longer see. I let her cry. I drank my tea. When she had stopped, I said, "Jennifer, I will say this once, and I will not repeat it. The relationship between you and me is over. The relationship between you and Amber and Caleb's grandmother is also over. The relationship that continues is the one between me and the grandchildren. Every other Saturday. They will tell me, when they are older, what they want our relationship to look like. Until they are old enough to tell me, the arrangement is between me and them. Not through you. The certified mail will arrive at your new address, wherever that ends up being, within 96 hours of you giving it to me. Please email the address to Helen Walsh by January 15th. The grandchildren's first visit will be the second Saturday in February." She nodded. She could not speak. Michael said, "Mum, I'm sorry. I should have said something. I should have stopped it. I was tired of fighting her about it. I just kept letting it go." I said, "Sweetheart, I know. The letting it go is how we got here. I let it go for 2 years. You let it go for 4. Your father did not let it go. He went to a lawyer in February of 2019 and arranged for me to have a different option than letting it go. The option has now been used. The relationship between you and me will continue, but it will continue on different terms. Lunch at my house, the first Sunday of every month, alone, without Jennifer, for 1 year. After that, we will reassess. The lunches begin in February." He nodded. He stood up. He hugged me. He held on for a long time. Then he went upstairs to tell Amber and Caleb that the family was leaving. I want to tell you something about the rest of that morning. After Michael went upstairs, I sat in the kitchen alone for 40 minutes. Jennifer had gone to the den to call her sister. I could hear her crying through the wall. I did not feel sorry for her. I also did not feel triumphant. I felt something quieter than either of those things. I felt, for the first time in 2 years, that the house I was sitting in was, in fact, the house I lived in. I noticed the cabinets which Jennifer had reorganized, and I noticed which cabinet I would put the flour back into. I noticed the dining room where they had hosted, and I noticed where I would put the small linen tablecloth my mother had given Frank and me on our wedding day. I noticed the mantel, and I noticed where I would hang the small wooden angel from my mother as soon as Jennifer's silver and white tree was gone. I noticed all of it. At 11:43, Amber came downstairs. She came into the kitchen alone. She had clearly been crying. She sat down across from me at the table. She said, "Grandma." I said, "Sweet pea." She said, "Are you mad at me?" I said, "No, sweet pea, I am not. I love you. I will love you for the rest of my life." She said, Are we still going to see each other?" I said, "Every other Saturday, starting in February, I will drive to wherever you are living. I will pick you up, you and Caleb. We will spend the day together. I will return you in the evening. Your father and I have already discussed it." She nodded. She was crying again. She said, "Grandma, Mum said something happened to your suitcase. Mum said she put it in the garage and that you found it there last night. Grandma, I would have brought it in. If I had known, I would have brought it in for you. I'm so sorry." I said, "Sweet pea, you did not know. None of this is your responsibility. None of it is your brother's. You did not put the suitcase in the garage. Your mother did. Your mother and I will not be in a relationship after this. You and I will. That is the part you are allowed to keep." She hugged me. She held on for a long time. Then she went upstairs to help her brother pack. Michael, Jennifer, Amber, and Caleb left my house at 3:46 p.m. on Christmas Eve. They took their suitcases. They took the gifts they had bought for each other. They took the new Christmas trees ornaments. Jennifer's silver and white ones in 2 cardboard boxes. They left. On the mantel, the 4 stockings, because Jennifer said she did not want to look at them. They left the tree, because Michael said he could not bring himself to take it down. Greg and Brittany left for a hotel at 4:15. Greg apologized to me at the door. He said he had not known. I believed him. Brittany did not speak. By 5 p.m. on Christmas Eve, my house was empty. I was alone in it for the first time since February of 2021. I made myself a small dinner: roast chicken, mashed potatoes, the cranberry sauce my mother had taught me to make in 1969. I ate at my own dining room table. After dinner, I went into the living room. I sat on the couch. I looked at the silver and white tree. Then I stood up. I walked to the basement. I retrieved the box of ornaments I had collected over 48 years. The handmade ones, the brass bell from our wedding, the small wooden angel from my mother, the popsicle stick reindeer Michael had made in 2nd grade in 1984. I carried the box upstairs. I removed every silver and white ornament from the tree. I put them in Jennifer's empty cardboard boxes. I would mail the boxes to her in January with a small note that said, "Only, I believe, these belong to you." I redecorated the tree. I hung the brass bell first. I hung the small wooden angel near the top. I hung the popsicle stick reindeer on a low branch where Caleb, who was 12, could see it the next time he came over. The tree, when I had finished, was no longer beautiful in the way Jennifer's tree had been beautiful. It was, however, mine. I sat in front of it for an hour. I went to bed at 10. I slept in my own bedroom on the 2nd floor. The bedroom Jennifer had taken for herself and Michael 4 years earlier, for the first time since February of 2021. The bed had been made with Jennifer's expensive linens. I changed them. I put my own sheets on. The sheets I had bought with Frank in 1992, which I had been keeping in the linen closet, because Jennifer had said they were too old-fashioned for the master bedroom. I slept in those sheets. I slept the way a woman sleeps when she has, finally, taken her own bedroom back, hung her own wreath, and put her own tree back together on Christmas Eve. In the house she had bought with her husband in 1976, with her own keys on a red carabiner on the nightstand beside her. On Christmas morning, I woke up at 7:30. I made coffee. I sat at the kitchen table. I opened the small notebook I had started keeping the morning after I came up from the basement. I wrote one line. I flew in for Christmas and found my suitcase in the garage. So by morning, the locks had changed, and I learned, at 74, that the most generous thing my husband ever did for me was the 3 hours he spent in a lawyer's office in February of 2019. 6 weeks before he knew he was sick, leaving me a set of keys for a morning he was afraid I would not yet be ready for. Sometimes dignity does not arrive with shouting. Sometimes it arrives in a balsam wreath, hung on a front door at 1017A. On Christmas Eve, on a house that has just remembered whose house it is. I closed the notebook. I made breakfast. I called my sister, Patricia, in Phoenix. I told her everything. She laughed for a long time. The way you laugh when you have been waiting for years to hear a story end well. She told me she would fly out in January to spend a week with me. I told her I would have the upstairs bedrooms ready for her. I told her the basement air mattress was deflated and put away in a box where it would stay. Patricia said, "Eleanor, Frank would be proud." I said, "Patricia, Frank was proud. He was proud 6 years ago. He left me the proof in a safe." We hung up. I poured myself a second cup of coffee. The wreath was on the door. The tree was mine. The keys were on the carabiner. Outside, the snow had started to fall. It was Christmas.